It's really understood in spiritual seeking that when the teacher is needed, the teacher appears. But there's another aspect to that. At some point, the teacher disappears. Needed or not. There comes a point where people realize, hopefully, or come to know that they're on their own. I definitely had that experience when Rudy died. It was very clear to me that he had left me an enormous gift, that I'd studied with him for 7 years, and then like that, he was gone. And at that point, either I had to make this work a part of my life, or to look for another teacher. In a sense, I did both. I ended up leaving New York and going to Indiana to study and to continue this practice. I felt I wasn't finished when Rudy died, that there was more to be done. And I somewhere in the process of feeling my way through the experience of Indiana, Blanche and I decided to leave as well. By that time I'd become a teacher, so I kind of thought I knew something. What I knew was that I needed to teach, because as any teacher who's honest realizes, it's through teaching that you really learn. You begin to truly articulate your experience, and you begin to formulate your experience. And we moved to Illinois, and I felt really hungry for students and didn't know really quite how to get them. Rudy used to say that as a teacher he was like a cow with big tits, and he needed people to suck from those or they dried up. If you didn't milk him, he wouldn't produce milk. And I had a feeling I needed to produce milk. So I somehow managed to teach a class in Hatha Yoga at the university. I guess I put up a poster, I got some group to support it. And at the end of each teaching of Hatha Yoga, which I had done for really many years before that, I would give a kind of meditation. And at the end of the course, I told people, anyone who wants to continue with this meditation, I would continue privately at my home. And the entire class showed up. And I began to teach in my home. And to this day, some of those students remain important students in my life. And I haven't been around to teach them, and they have maintained an extraordinary practice on their own. I'm about to give up teaching here, and every one of you is going to be essentially on your own. There are other people still teaching. Michael is going to be teaching here. Arkady teaches up in Boston right now. There are people who will continue teaching. Wade is teaching here in this area. Julie, I don't know where you're going to be, but neither do you. So, but what I'm really trying to get at is take advantage of whoever is around. Let them continue to feed you, but the really important message of all of this is that this is your work. This is up to you. It's sometimes hard for people in the middle of their lives to figure out, why should I sit a half hour every day? Why should I waste an hour of my day doing nothing? Well, most of you who are here know that something happens in that half hour. Something fundamentally important happens. You sit for half an hour, the first 10 minutes you go, oh God, why am I here? And then this thing starts to take place for most everybody, almost every day, almost every time, where it goes, oh, this feels good. Oh, something's happening. And then you stop thinking, and it just occurs. It's this bigness, this rootedness, this sense of connectivity, this sense of openness, this sense of being nurtured. It goes on and on. There's so many ways to describe it. Sense of being present in your own life. It's so exquisitely important. It's hard to say why it's important, but it is. You feel it. You feel this stillness inside gives meaning to everything else. That without it, it's just endless, uninterrupted noise, meaningless noise. But when this presence occurs inside you, it makes it important for you to be here. There's a sense of knowing something profound. It's not even something you can express, but you just know you were created to know this. You were born to know this. In fact, I think you were born knowing it. And then the noise of the world takes over for important reasons, actually. The world wants to be manifested. It wants to exist. It wants its material expression. And you are going to be part of that. You were born to be part of that. But you were not born to lose a sense of who you were or who you are. And almost everybody does. And then this incredible sense of suffering and dissatisfaction and disappointment and sadness and curiosity and feeling lost, and all of these issues start to materialize within the materialization. And you go, what? Why? What? Why was I happy yesterday and not today? How do I hold on to that happiness? How do I find the thing I'm looking for? What am I looking for? Why doesn't it appear? All of these issues start to happen for people. And where are the answers? Where are the answers? Well, they're all over the place. That's almost part of the problem. The answers you'll probably start to get in your life will come from your parents, and your parents will start to tell you their truths about the world. And what you realize very early on, for many of us, is that their truths don't take care of it. They don't really know. Terrible realization when you realize your parents don't really know. Not everybody picks that up, but a lot of people do. I remember I was 17 and in college, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, my parents aren't that much older than I am. And they're figuring it out for the first time just like I am. And they don't know the answers. That was really devastating for me. It's like, oh, they're making mistakes like I make mistakes. And that's a real complicated experience. But they do try in their own way to give you something that explains the world. And often what that is a philosophy of life or a religious teaching. And for many of us, that becomes the grounding of a life, a religious training or exposure. And I, for one, found my early religious training to be not unlike what my parents expressed, which was a casual, occasional exposure on high holy days to something that was very strange to me. I never fully understood it. I liked the ceremony, but I didn't fully get that there was a message really speaking to me, the message I would get from my mother was, oh, look what she's wearing. Oh, she looks wonderful. What did she do to her hair? You know, that kind of thing. And it wouldn't go very deep. And it was a very superficial experience. And I often didn't like what the rabbis were saying. And I hated standing up and sitting down and standing up and sitting down. And I just didn't get what was going on. Except I knew it was couched in something bigger, and that bigness was really somehow meaningful to me. I didn't get it, but it was meaningful. I just watched a very interesting movie the other night. It came out last year, called Higher Ground, and I don't know if any of you saw it. It came out about that long. But it's a really interesting movie about Christian fundamentalism and about a woman who tried to find her purpose in a religious Christian fundamentalist sect, and how it spoke to her and didn't speak to her. And it was really interesting because her journey was very different than the journey of everybody else in the sect. Everybody else in the sect was rigid in their belief system. This is how it is. And it was a very comforting system for many people because you didn't have to think about anything at all. This was how it is. But she kept thinking about it. And it was funny because when they baptized her, everyone else was having this revelation of baptism, like, oh my God, oh my God. She was baptized and she came up and there were sort of sand crabs biting her in the foot and fish nibbling at her. And she's going, oh my God, get me out of here, get me out of here. And it was really kind of wonderful because she, from the very beginning, wasn't given the pure experience. And she would sit in her car and say, God, speak to me. Holy Spirit, come into me. Fill me. And it was so touching to see how much she wanted this and how much she was on her own. And she was on her own because she had a mind and she thought and she saw the rigidity of people around her and it wasn't working for her. She wanted more. And I identified with her completely because I just know that this isn't given to you from the outside. It isn't a structure around you. It is a living presence within you. And finding the Holy Spirit within, finding presence within, finding the self, whatever language you want to use, whether it's Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, it doesn't matter. It's an individual search for your wholeness, for who you are, what you are, for your own inner truth. And we're all on it. And each of you has gravitated to this particular room because there's something in this language that speaks to you or has spoken to you up until now. And many of you, as we know, make these journeys here to partake in it. So you have a value for it. You have found some worth in it. And now this structure, this room, this house, this teaching or this teacher is going to go gone. Finished. That finality is very powerful. It's very powerful. And it leaves you, all of you, even those of you who are teaching, on your own. And we're all deeply on our own. And we are all reaching for connection, presence. The incredible thing about Rudy's teaching is its muscularity. Because with Rudy's teaching, you sit down and you take charge. You basically go, please help me to surrender. You're not sitting there just waiting for it to happen. You really are dealing with your own resistance, your own inertia, your own impatience, your own negativity, all of this stuff that fills you. You're actually going into the midst of it and saying, please help me basically to let go of everything that's in the way of this stillness and presence, this sweet joy that we know can fill us, that allows you to open your heart, open your gut to being. And with Rudy's work, you take a real breath into your heart and you really ask. You ask with everything in you. It's a great practice. And most of the time, there you are, back with yourself. And it's really beautiful. Some days that's not the case. You sit down and you ask and you ask and you ask, nothing happens. Some people decide, oh well, this doesn't work, and they go to something else, and they go to the smorgasbord of 5,000 different teachings out there, and they try this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, and something works for a few minutes and then it doesn't work. And then if they find one, they become fundamentalists. You know, I found the teaching, this is it, this is the thing that will sustain me for the rest of my life. Well, the only thing that sustains you truly for the rest of your life is the thing that has sustained you from the beginning of your life, and that is yourself, your own inner self. And if you have lost your connection to that self, which happens only in the fact that your mind goes away from it, if you can bring your attention back, which doesn't mean your mind necessarily, or your cognitive mind, just your attention, if you can bring it back, you discover you never lost it. It can't go anywhere. It's there all the time. You aren't there all the time, but it is. Your propensity to get totally caught by the world, to become lost by, you know, what's going to happen on Breaking Bad, you know, or who's going to win American Idol, or whatever that stuff is that keeps you in the world. That stuff is just wasting your time, keeping you engaged so that you don't have to know what is really happening inside you. Something interesting happens, and I'll tell this to all of you who are in your 30s, 40s, 50s. If you're lucky enough, you hit 70. And when you hit 70, I will promise you, every one of you, you begin to take stock. And I've seen this in everyone I know who's turned 70. It's like you don't turn 70 in a kind of, oh, I'm just going to have a party. It really hits you. Oh my God, I'm 70. And you start to look at your life, and you start to look at what is or basically was important. And it's amazing how little of what you've experienced was important. I'll tell you one thing that was not important was your job. It paid for you to live. That was good. It may have helped you buy or rent a place to be. But what was important? It's everything that you've heard all your life, and it's so simple. Relationships were important, some of them. Friendships. Even the relatives who you can't stand, who in some way defined your life. Even in not liking them, they became a way of looking at who you were. There are those who you loved. In some cases, you have children. It's so simple. The occasional vacation that you took together. Going shopping with your spouse. The supermarket. I mean, you start looking at the things that really were important. And they were the least important as they were occurring. You know, sitting on the front porch of my house here. Taking a walk with the dog. I'm telling you, that's what's important. I mean, it's what you realize is important. And luckily, when you hit 70, that's what you get a chance to do. To walk with your dog and be with your spouse, and in my case, have children and even grandchildren. You know, it's like, oh. But all of that, for all of its centrality and for all of its importance, even that is going to go away. Even the things that are most treasured, which were so simple and so casually present, and yet ultimately loved, all of it goes away. And the loss of all of that will define the last part of your life. It's why Rudy called this practice a life's work, because it really becomes important at the end. It's important as you go through it, yes, but at the end it becomes central, because what you are doing at that point is consciously allowing the things you most love to fall away. It takes unbelievable training and capacity to do that. Now I tell you, it's possible to watch so much television and to go to so many movies that you won't even have to do it. You won't bother. You go, what's on TV now? Turn it on, click on, turn on the radio, turn on the whatever. You won't have to even face the fact that everything you love is going to be taken away. Until suddenly, it's taken away. Then you have to face it. You might think, well, why do I have to plan for that? If it's going to happen anyway, it'll happen. I can meanwhile enjoy TV. There may be truth in that. There may be, but my experience is the stuff that's taken away, you either let go of or it's ripped out of you. And you experience that. I don't think you want to leave the world with life ripped away. I think you want to leave the world graciously, letting it go. And it takes an entire life of practice to be able to do that. Because the journey that begins, this is a speculation, but I believe it to be true. The journey that begins at the end of your life is as big or bigger than the one that life experience presented. If you can leave this journey graciously, if you can leave it openly, if you can open your heart to the uncertainty and the unknown and know that that is all there ever has been, that from day one you are this uncertain principle, this deep, delicious being that has no sense of future and no sense of past. It just is. The entire journey that you are going to make is contained in that space. There's nowhere to go but to that. It goes nowhere. It just is. But you can't go to that space if your mind isn't still. If your mind is still traveling in the journey of your own creation. Most people leave the world totally caught in mind stuff, and they've never learned how to let go of it. And so the journey through the infinite realms of stillness are filled with noise and chaos. A kind of hellish experience. You don't want that, trust me. You want to have learned how to say yes to infinite stillness. Because that's what you are. It's who you are. It's who we all are. It is the fulfillment of presence that defines us. And the spiritual journey is the journey to the place you've always been. It's just settling back in. It's turning off the noise, turning off the TV, turning off the 4,000th novel you've read in the last months. So many people I know read to keep themselves away from this world. TV, movies, music, whatever. It's all fine. It's all fine. But not if it keeps you from this. Very soon, the weekly teaching of this practice will stop. But the place that it comes from doesn't go anywhere. All you have to do is find your way back to yourself and sit there. Trust it. It will guide you, it will lead you. The very same voice that's speaking to you now speaks within you. One of the great things I've discovered in the community of awakened people is they all speak with the same voice. Not the same personality, but the same truth. And it's not a truth that comes from a rigidity or a fundamentalism of thought. It comes from this extraordinarily simple, real place. And when it speaks, you recognize it, you know it, it's true. It has unbelievable truth in it. And we all have that voice at the core of ourself. Every single person. There's nobody in this room who doesn't have access to that. The only thing is you have to go there. And when it starts to speak, it will guide you. It will tell you what to do next. It will help you through your life. It is your staff. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. They lead you by still waters. This voice is your own inner voice. It'll make you lie down in green pastures. It's what we're all trying to find, and it's right here. It's right here. And all the teacher does is remind you of that. And all you have to do is go, oh, and go there. That's the whole job. And in some instances, and it's a rare thing, the seeking person, the person who's seeking all of this, falls by the wayside, and the very thing that was being sought is all that's left. There's no seeker anymore, there's just this. But if there is a seeker, let that seeker move and find its way into, become embedded in that stillness. Yes, you may fall out of it, but go back to it. Yes, you may go back into distraction. Ask for help to go back to your own center. And if that's the nature of your life, it's a beautiful life because you keep bringing yourself back to what's important, to what is, and you find yourself over and over and over again. And after a while, you know that's your retreat center. That's where you go. You don't come to Bruce's house, you come to your house. You come to the place that's in you, and you go back there over and over, and you go, oh, thank God, it's right there. And you don't have to get in your car, you don't have to drive for 2 hours, you don't have to do anything. You just, it's right there. All I do is remind you that it's there. I also, in teaching, give you a taste of it, but you've all had that taste. You all know what it tastes like. You all know what it feels like. Take it on. Live with it. Be it. This is the journey. It's really each of our journeys to find that for ourselves. A fundamentalist group will give you security in thinking you know something, but you don't know it until you know it. It's not in the group, it's in you. That's what we're here for, to find that thing in us, and it's not hard because it's always there. Remember that. It's you who's distracted from it. It's not distracted from you, it's completely present all the time. You just get caught up in the drama of the world. But I don't say you like I'm not one of you. I do the same thing. We all do it. We get caught up and then you go, whoa. And the great thing about a practice that's a lifetime's work is that there's a muscle there that says, okay, the world's taken its toll, come on, come back, come back. And when you turn 70, wait and see the toll that the world starts to take. You know, the little problems start to become big problems. The little ache in your knee becomes, I can't walk on this knee, I got to have it replaced. Or whatever it is, it's much bigger afterward. And you're going to lose a lot of things that were natural and immediately available to you aren't going to be there. They're not going to be there anymore. And you're going to go, oh my God, they're taking all this stuff away. Yes, that's the journey. Cut, 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 gone, gone, gone. What's left? What's left? You are. You are left. Everything that you really profoundly love about you is left. All the history of relationship in you, everyone you've ever loved, everything that's ever gone on is all right here in the self. There is no loss. I mean, it feels like loss because you'll lose the materialization. But all of that comes from the immaterial truth of this self. And when you know that, nothing can be lost, and in a way nothing can be gained. It's all there. So, know this as deeply as you can, because it's hard for me to leave you as well as you're leaving here. I would love to be there every week and just keep pushing this button, but not going to be. So, prepare yourselves for your own inner journey, and know that when Rudy left me, he left me with enough of everything to find myself. And every one of you is left with enough of everything to find yourself. So do it. Not that hard. Any questions?
Will you continue to teach on the West Coast?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, we're not moving to Los Angeles, which is what I thought we were doing. We're moving to Seattle.
Okay.
I don't have any students in Seattle. We're still going to have LA.
Would you like some?
Pardon?
Would you like some?
Students?
Yeah.
I love teaching. Like I said, I'm a cow like Rudy. And I would love to continue this, and I plan to, if anybody shows up.
It's an interesting thing about what you said about when you moved to Illinois, and you kind of like backed into this thing, and then it happened. You know, it happened in an indirect way.
I was aiming at it, though.
I understand, but
Yeah. No,
right.
I mean, I'm open to
But you
continuing.
attracted what you wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, look, if I never teach again, it's okay.
Right.
I still think there's something to be offered, and I'm happy to do it. You know, Nityananda, I mean, he was my image of a guru. You know, he didn't do anything. He just sat there, and people gathered by the thousands. He hardly talked. They just gathered to be in his presence. You know, he looked and he walked around in a diaper. Why would anybody run over to see a guy sitting around in a diaper? He emanated something unbelievably real. And Rudy saw him once, just once, and his whole life changed, and he became a teacher. Just one moment. That's a great way to end your life. I'm not trying to compare myself to Nityananda, but there is an energy here that I know is real, and it's available to anybody. And whether it's just exchanged with me at the supermarket with whoever I'm, you know, buying my milk from, or whether or not it's coming out of a class, it'll be what it'll be. It's not really my decision at this point. I'm just available, and we'll see where it goes.
I have about 10 questions.
10 questions? Okay, keep them short.
But I'll ask some of them later. You know, in knowing that place of stillness and it being accessible to hear the guidance, I get confused, like when I talk to my aunt, I had a long conversation with her last night, and she's really wanting me to explore a personal relationship with Jesus. And I get it, but that still place is where we hear the guidance from Jesus or God or nature or the universe. Is that right?
It's all one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell her fine. tell her you are. Truly.
Yeah.
And it all filters into it's the same teaching.
She sent me a book, which she sent it to me a couple of months ago and encouraged me to start reading it last night, and I did. And it asks the question, are you a fan or a follower of Jesus? And it's a profound question. Because a fan to me feels like, going outside for that, and a follower is the deepening the teaching.
The great thing about presence is it endlessly keeps us rooted in truth. And when there is a truth available, it will resonate. When you see it as not true, it will just go not true, and you just move on. In all of the codified, ritualized teachings that come at us, There are moments and elements of real truth, and there are a lot of things that just embody, that go around it that are not truth. And you will know it, and you'll just throw the chaff away and take the kernel. And that's all you have to do. And it really becomes very clear after a while, you know. But, you know, you can't go wrong, really, in any of these religious practices, except that you can get caught up in the form over the content. That's the only danger. And you feel, in a sense, identified by that form. But so many people doing spiritual work, this is a real interesting and big problem. A lot of people living the spiritual life become identified with it, and it becomes who they are. It becomes their narrative. And that's no good either. Because then you just change one narrative for another. Instead of a Christian, I'm a spiritual person. You know, or instead of a Hindu, I'm a Buddhist. You know, whatever the thing is that people do, the identity is the problem. You're none of that stuff. You're just this. This Buddhism was a way of expressing this truth. Christ was trying to teach this truth. That's all these guys are doing. And then it becomes locked into, you know, a Rudy teaching or whatever. It's really a problem. Because as long as you are identified with the form, you're not going to get the core teaching. And the core teaching isn't in a group, it's just you and it. And then there's no you and it, there's just it.
Right. Yeah, that's something she was saying, it's got to be a very personal relationship. And I know, it's a reminder.
Yeah. We'll talk for the other 9 questions later.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, well, there's only so many classes left, and actually Blanche and I are realizing we're going to have to travel on some Sundays, so fewer classes than I imagined. So you're welcome here until we're done, or or you can just go home and take the message of this class and feel complete. Thanks for coming.